My name is Laura, and I've always been drawn to the history and elegance of old hotels. There's something enchanting about their grandeur and the stories they hold. When I had the chance to visit the Majestic Hotel in New York, I was thrilled. The hotel was renowned for its opulence and its long history, but it was also known for something far more sinister. I arrived at the Majestic Hotel on a crisp autumn afternoon. The lobby was a breathtaking sight, with its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and rich wood paneling. As I checked in, the concierge, a middle-aged man with a kindly face, handed me my room key and mentioned something about the hotel's haunted reputation. I laughed it off, attributing it to a clever marketing ploy to attract curious tourists. Little did I know, the stories were all too real. That night, I settled into my room on the 4th floor. The room was beautifully decorated with antique furniture and luxurious drapes. I unpacked my bags and decided to take a bath to unwind from my journey. As I soaked in the tub, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air grew colder, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I dismissed it as my imagination, but the feeling persisted. After my bath, I climbed into bed, hoping to get a good night's sleep. But sleep did not come easily. I was jolted awake in the middle of the night by a loud thud. My heart raced as I strained to listen. The room was deathly silent, but I could feel a presence. I sat up and saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was a man, but his head was missing. He was dressed in a tattered suit, and his hands were outstretched as if reaching for something. I screamed and reached for the lamp on the bedside table, but when I turned it on, the figure was gone. I sat there, trembling, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. I knew I wasn't imagining things. The Majestic Hotel was indeed haunted. The next morning, I decided to find out more about the hotel's haunted history. I visited the local library and spent hours researching old newspapers and records. I discovered that the Majestic Hotel had a long and tragic history. In the early 1900s, a man named Thomas Bradford had stayed at the hotel. He was a wealthy businessman with a dark past. One night, he was found dead in his room, his head severed from his body. The murder was never solved, and rumors circulated that Thomas had been involved in shady dealings and had made many enemies. Over the years, guests and staff had reported seeing Thomas's headless apparition roaming the halls, searching for his missing head. The more I read, the more I realized that the figure I had seen the previous night was Thomas Bradford. Determined to help Thomas find peace, I sought out the help of a local medium named Claire. She was known for her ability to communicate with spirits and had helped many restless souls find peace. I told her about my encounter and showed her the articles I had found. Claire agreed to help and suggested we conduct a séance in the hotel room where Thomas had died. We planned to perform the séance on a quiet night, hoping to communicate with Thomas's spirit and understand what he needed to move on. On the night of the séance, Claire and I arrived at the hotel armed with candles, a Ouija board, and various other tools of the trade. We set up in the room, arranging the candles in a circle and placing the Ouija board in the center. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Claire began by calling out to Thomas, asking him to join us and communicate. At first, there was only silence. The room was dimly lit by the flickering candles, and I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on us. Claire repeated her call, her voice steady and calm, asking Thomas to give us a sign of his presence. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and a cold breeze swept through, extinguishing several candles. The planchette on the Ouija board began to move slowly, spelling out HELP. My heart raced as Claire continued to ask questions, guiding the planchette with her fingertips. "Thomas, what do you need help with?" she asked. The planchette moved again, spelling out MYHEAD. I shivered as I realized the depth of his torment. Thomas's spirit had been trapped, endlessly searching for his severed head. Claire asked him where we could find it, and the planchette spelled out BASEMENT. We gathered our courage and made our way to the basement, which had long been abandoned and used for storage. The air was musty and filled with the scent of decay. Claire led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. As we descended the creaky stairs, the sense of unease grew stronger. The basement was a labyrinth of old furniture, dusty crates, and forgotten relics of the hotel's past. We searched for what felt like hours, our nerves fraying with each passing minute. Just as I was about to give up hope, Claire called out to me. She had found an old wooden box hidden beneath a pile of debris. It was locked, but with some effort, we managed to pry it open. Inside, we found a collection of old documents and photographs, but what caught our attention was a small, weathered trunk. With trembling hands, we opened the trunk, revealing a bundle wrapped in an old, tattered cloth. As we unwrapped it, the stench of decay hit us, and there it was, Thomas Bradford's severed head, perfectly preserved despite the passage of time. Claire began to chant softly, performing a ritual to release Thomas's spirit. As she spoke, the air grew colder, and I could feel a presence in the room. The head began to disintegrate, turning to dust before our eyes. A sense of peace washed over us, and I knew that Thomas's spirit had finally found rest. The basement seemed to lighten, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. We made our way back upstairs, feeling a sense of accomplishment and relief. The hotel staff, who had been skeptical of our efforts, were stunned by the change in the atmosphere. The reports of sightings ceased, and the guests and staff felt a newfound sense of peace. Over the next few weeks, I stayed in touch with Claire, reflecting on our experience. The haunting of the Majestic Hotel had been a test of courage and determination, but it had also shown me the power of compassion and the importance of helping those in need, even those who had passed on. As I left the Majestic Hotel, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the experience. It had been a journey into the unknown, a confrontation with the supernatural that had tested my limits and left me with a deeper understanding of the world beyond our own. The stories of the haunted hotel became less about fear and more about redemption. The guests and staff felt the change, and the Majestic Hotel thrived once more, its haunted past now a story of hope and resolution. For me, it was a reminder that even in the darkest places, there is always a chance for light to shine through. The experiences at Orlando Central Station and the Majestic Hotel left lasting impressions on me. They reminded me that the world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and that with courage and determination, even the darkest forces can be confronted and overcome. I continued my journey, seeking out the unknown, always ready to face whatever lay ahead with an open heart and a brave spirit. My time at the Majestic Hotel was a turning point in my life. It solidified my fascination with the paranormal and my determination to help restless spirits find peace. As I continued my journey, I encountered many more haunted locations, each with its own unique story. But the Majestic Hotel remained one of the most profound experiences I had ever faced. The months following our encounter with Thomas Bradford were busy. Claire and I kept in touch, often collaborating on other cases where our skills could be of use. She became not only a colleague, but a close friend. Together, We formed a small team of like-minded individuals dedicated to investigating and resolving supernatural occurrences. One evening, as we were reviewing some case files, Claire mentioned an old hotel in upstate New York that had recently come to her attention. The Rosewood Manor, once a luxurious retreat for the wealthy, had fallen into disrepair and was now reputed to be haunted by multiple spirits. Intrigued, we decided to investigate. When we arrived at Rosewood Manor, the site was both beautiful and tragic. The grand structure, with its ivy-covered walls and broken windows, exuded a sense of faded glory. The caretaker, an elderly man named Mr. Harris, greeted us and shared the history of the manor. According to him, the hotel had been the site of several tragic events, including a fire that claimed the lives of several guests and staff members. As we walked through the dimly lit halls, we could feel the weight of the past pressing down on us. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and mildew. Shadows danced on the walls, and the silence was punctuated by the occasional creak of the floorboards. Our first night at Rosewood Manor was uneventful, but the second night was when things took a dark turn. We had set up our equipment in the grand ballroom, where most of the paranormal activity had been reported. As we began our investigation, the temperature dropped and an eerie stillness settled over the room. Suddenly, we heard the sound of soft, haunting music. It seemed to emanate from the old, decrepit piano in the corner of the room. Clary approached the piano cautiously, and as she did, the music stopped abruptly. The room grew colder, and we saw the faint outline of a woman in a tattered ball gown standing by the piano. Her face was contorted in pain, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. She began to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "Help me," she pleaded. "I can't leave this place." Claire and I exchanged glances, knowing we had to help her. We spent the next few days researching the history of Rosewood Manor, uncovering stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and loss. We learned that the woman by the piano was Isabella, a talented pianist who had been engaged to the manor's owner, Edward. Tragically, she had died in the fire that consumed the ballroom. Her dreams of a bright future extinguished. We decided to perform a séance to communicate with Isabella and help her find peace. As we gathered in the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was charged with energy. We lit candles and arranged them in a circle around the piano. Claire began the séance, calling out to Isabella and asking her to join us. The air grew colder and the candles flickered. Isabella's spirit appeared once more, her eyes filled with a desperate longing. Claire spoke gently, reassuring her that we were there to help. Isabella's story unfolded as she recounted her love for Edward and her tragic end. Tears streamed down my face as I listened to her heartbreaking tale. Claire asked Isabella what she needed to find peace, and the answer was simple yet profound. She wanted to know that Edward had loved her until the end. We promised to find proof of Edward's love and return to help her move on. Our search led us to an old, forgotten room in the manor's attic. Among the dusty relics, we found a charred journal belonging to Edward. His final entry, written just before the fire, professed his undying love for Isabella and his regret that they couldn't be together. With the journal in hand, we returned to the grand ballroom and presented it to Isabella. As she read Edward's words, her spirit seemed to lighten. She looked at us with gratitude and whispered, "Thank you." Slowly, her form began to fade, and a sense of peace settled over the room. The haunting at Rosewood Manor had come to an end, and the manor itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the staff and remaining guests felt a newfound sense of calm, As Claire and I packed our equipment, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this point. Each encounter with the supernatural had deepened my understanding of the world beyond and strengthened my resolve to help those in need. The spirits we encountered were not just specters of the past, but echoes of human experiences and emotions, longing for resolution and peace. The experiences at Orlando Central Station, the Majestic Hotel, and Rosewood Manor were more than just frightening encounters with the unknown. They were opportunities to connect with the past, understand the pain and suffering of others, and offer a sense of closure and compassion. As we drove away from Rosewood Manor, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. There were many more stories to uncover, many more spirits to help, and many more mysteries to solve. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face whatever lay ahead with an open heart and a brave spirit. My journey into the unknown had just begun, and I knew that with each step, I would continue to learn, grow, and make a difference in the lives of those both living and departed. The experience at Rosewood Manor marked a significant chapter in my journey, but it was far from the end. Claire and I continued our work, investigating haunted locations and helping restless spirits find peace. Our reputation grew, and soon we were receiving requests from all over the country. One of the most intriguing cases came from an old friend named Mark, who had recently purchased an abandoned asylum in Pennsylvania. He planned to renovate the building and turn it into a museum, but his plans were stalled by reports of paranormal activity. He reached out to us, hoping we could help him clear the building of any lingering spirits. We arrived at the asylum on a foggy evening. The building loomed ominously against the darkening sky, its windows broken and its walls covered in ivy. Mark greeted us at the entrance, his face pale and drawn. He led us inside, and I immediately felt a sense of unease. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the silence was oppressive. Mark explained that strange noises and sightings had been reported by the workers attempting to renovate the building. Tools had gone missing, and cold spots had been felt in various parts of the asylum. Some of the workers had even refused to return, claiming they had seen apparitions of former patients. Claire and I set up our equipment in what had once been the main ward. The room was large and empty, save for a few rusted bed frames and decaying mattresses. We started our investigation, walking through the darkened halls and recording any unusual activity. As the night wore on, we began to hear faint whispers and footsteps echoing through the corridors. The temperature dropped and I felt a cold breeze brush past me. We followed the sounds to the basement where the most intense activity had been reported. The basement was a labyrinth of narrow hallways and small, dark rooms. It was here that the most disturbing events had occurred. As we ventured deeper into the basement, the sense of dread grew stronger. The air was thick with the smell of mold and rot, and the walls were covered in graffiti left by vandals over the years. We set up our cameras and began an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon session, hoping to capture any communication from the spirits. As Claire asked questions, we heard a faint, childlike voice respond. The voice seemed to come from a small, dark room at the end of the hallway. We cautiously approached the room and found a broken doll lying on the floor. Claire picked up the doll and the temperature in the room plummeted. The door slammed shut behind us, and we heard a loud, anguished scream. We turned on our flashlights and saw the apparition of a young girl standing in the corner. Her eyes were filled with fear and she clutched her chest as if in pain. Claire spoke softly to the girl, asking her name and what had happened to her. The girl's voice was barely a whisper as she recounted her tragic story. Her name was Emily, and she had been a patient at the asylum. She had died of a heart condition, and her spirit had been trapped in the building ever since. Emily's story was heartbreaking, and I felt a deep sense of compassion for her. We promised to help her find peace and began the process of performing a cleansing ritual. As we recited prayers and burned sage, Emily's spirit seemed to lighten. She looked at us with gratitude and whispered, "Thank you," before fading away. The atmosphere in the basement changed immediately. The oppressive feeling lifted, and the cold spots disappeared. We knew that Emily had finally found peace. We continued our investigation throughout the night, encountering a few more spirits, each with their own tragic stories. We helped them all find peace, and by the time dawn broke, the asylum felt different, calmer and less foreboding. Mark was incredibly grateful for our help. He resumed the renovations, and the asylum was eventually transformed into a museum dedicated to the history of mental health care. The stories of the spirits we had helped were included in the exhibits, ensuring that their memories would not be forgotten. As Claire and I drove away from the asylum, I reflected on the journey we had undertaken. Each encounter with the supernatural had deepened my understanding of the human condition and the importance of empathy and compassion. The spirits we encountered were not just echoes of the past, but reminders of the resilience and strength of the human spirit. Our work continued, and we faced many more challenges and adventures. We traveled to haunted mansions, deserted hospitals, and even a cursed battlefield. Each location had its own unique story, and each spirit had its own needs and desires. Through it all, Claire and I remained steadfast in our mission. We knew that the world was full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and that with courage and determination, we could make a difference. Our journey into the unknown had just begun, and we were ready to face whatever lay ahead with open hearts and brave spirits. In the end, our work was about more than just confronting the supernatural. It was about understanding the human experience, connecting with the past, and offering hope and healing to those in need. It was a journey that tested our limits and pushed us to grow, but it was also a journey that brought us closer to the truth and to each other. The world is full of darkness, but it is also full of light. As long as we remain willing to face the unknown and help those in need, we can bring a little more light into the world. And that, I realized, is the true purpose of our journey. Our story is far from over. There are many more spirits to help, many more mysteries to uncover, and many more adventures to be had. But no matter where our journey takes us, we will always remember the lessons we have learned and the spirits we have helped. The world is a strange and wonderful place, full of beauty and terror, hope and despair. And as long as we remain true to ourselves and our mission, we will continue to make a difference, one spirit at a time.